Hello everyone and welcome back to another video where I'm going to be doing a speed build. So I have decided to go into Oasis Springs. It's not one of the towns I use very often, but I can't even remember what it was, but I started thinking about Greece and I realised in my head that Oasis Springs, especially some of the locations, not all of them, because some have obviously a bit more grass and are a bit more lush, but because they have this sort of dry, arid desert design with obviously a lot of plants and things which are still there adding in its own version of lushness, it reminded me a lot of my family holidays to Greece. And as such, I have decided that I'm going to completely demolish Oasis Springs and I'm going to rebuild it as Greek houses. So this is my first one. It is going to be based off of the houses which I sort of remember seeing a lot in Santorini. It doesn't have the domed roof, but I am thinking of maybe adding something later on within the neighbourhood, which is going to have that very stereotypical circular bright blue roof. So, in my thought process about how to do this, I wanted it to have a few key things. I wanted it to be whitewashed. I do dislike that there aren't any way of doing really nice curved edges, so like their walls around their houses, so the borders, etc., are often quite curved. They seem very organic, and you can't really get that in Sims. So I did what I could. I also wanted it to have that white with the blue accents on the windows and the doors. Not so much that it looked like a Greek flag, but enough that you could tell that it was from Greece. And then one of the other things I really wanted is to have lots of plant life in it. So despite the country being quite arid in a lot of ways, they have a lot of plants. They put a lot of them around their houses. They grow grapevines up the side. And it's just absolutely beautiful. They've got so much greenery for a country which, because of the hot temperatures, really struggle with it. And I just love it. I can't really explain it any better than that. If you haven't been to Greece, I highly recommend going there. It's one of my family's favourite places to go. In fact, my first holiday where we took my now husband with us was to Greece. And because of that, we had our honeymoon there and everything. So definitely recommend it. It's just stunning. Will give you a slight thing though. You can't put toilet paper down the toilets. From what I got told, don't know how true this is, but from what I got told is the British showed them how to do toilets and plumbing, and we made their pipes too small, so they can't do it. So in doing so, we went along and basically said, we're going to give you indoor plumbing. It's just not going to be sufficient. So we sort of did a half good thing, and a half we're a little bit mean, I think. I feel like we should go back and sort of resolve it. So yes, out the front you've got the pergola which I started. That's going to have greenery, so vines and plants on it and growing up to it. Quite often you'll find the Greeks actually sitting outside the front of the house. Because they're so sociable and they like talking to people and spending time together, you'll often find families will have a front pergola where they can sit and they can watch the world go by, say hello to their friends as they walk past, invite them in for a drink or a meal or anything like that. And it's just such a nice way to be. And I can't understand why other people want the same, although to be fair they do have the good weather to be sitting outside come what may. So yeah, so this is me most of the way through the outdoors. It does have that nice feel to it. I've put a swimming pool in because I just can't go to Greece without a swimming pool. You may have guessed already by the sheer size of the house. Might be a little bit too expensive for a starter home, but I will build a few of those once I get into it. As a just wanting to have something that was very Greek as a starting point. I'm quite happy with how this has gone, and I feel a bit more comfortable and confident now doing lots of different things. So here you can see me adding in all these potted plants, adding the vines going up. You know, you don't want to have too much and make it too overbearing, but you want to have enough. And the idea of having the plants over the top is you end up getting a dappled light effect. So in real life, for anyone who's not spent much time with things like this, the idea behind it is that the leaves are giving you the shade. So even though you haven't got an umbrella or anything, you can sit outside for quite a while, and it just gives you that nice bit of protection, so you don't feel like you're sweltering. And actually it's just quite nice. There's nothing quite like having vine leaves and having a grapevine climbing up the side of a house and then being able to pick off a grape as you're going through it. Moving on to the outside. I'm terrible at outside design, just so you're aware. That is why it will look a bit rubbish in comparison to lots of other people. So I tried to make it so you could have the ground where the trees would be, but it just looks stupid. So in the end, I basically just covered it with stone and went with, well, there's rocks and plants, no one's going to notice. And then I've started making raised flower beds. It was something I did once, and I thought, well, that was a great idea. I should do more of them. And it's a nice way of being able to add in some extra greenery, but in a very confined and sort of dedicated space. It gives it those barriers, so even though there's lots of nice lush grass there, it doesn't look out of place with the stone and the rest of the dry area, because it's got its own enclosed, this is where the grass goes, spot. Now, inside, I don't design any of these beforehand. I'm a bit of a, we'll see what happens and go with the flow. And I probably should think about it a little bit more, but I do not. So I knew I could probably fit 2 bedrooms up here, but they were going to be weird. And then I was thinking, oh, I've got this extra door. What's the point in having it? Then I started thinking, well, actually, that could be an extra entrance into the bedroom upstairs. And I managed to find a way of fitting in the smallest hallway in existence, but who really cares how much time do you actually spend standing in a hallway? As long as you can get through it to another bedroom without literally having to go through the bedroom, that's sufficient as far as I'm concerned. And I mean, if you had a teenager in the room, really nice and easy for them to sneak in and out. So I'm sure they won't mind too much having their own personal entrance with staircase and balcony. So I decided to start with the bedrooms. I didn't know what to do downstairs. I had just complete mind blank, and I thought, we'll go into the bedrooms. They're nice and simple. You know, you can add quite a bit of character to them, and then maybe that will help me think about what on earth I'm going to do with the rest of the house. And I started with the blue and white, and it started turning into a Greek flag. And I'm thinking, right, I'm sure there are some people who are very, you know, patriotic, but how many of them are actually going to make the master bedroom a Greek flag? So I started going through the paintings thinking I liked the bed, and I wanted one that went above the bed. And in a minute you'll see a picture which I came across, and I went with this one with the yellows and the different colours because it meant I had to sort of try and match it without making it too matchy-matchy. And it steered me away from all those blues. You know, it still went with it. It still had some in the picture, but it wasn't overpowering. And in doing that, I was able to have a look at things. So I got some greens in the room, and then you'll notice in a minute that I end up putting a rug in. So all of the floors are stone concrete of some sort. I can't remember what I put in, if I'm completely honest. And that's quite standard in hot European countries because it gets so hot that actually having the stone floors, it keeps you cool underfoot. And actually, if you had underfloor heating in winter, if it did get particularly cold, it also lets the heat rise really nicely. Cannot tell you how nice it is to have underfloor heating with like stone floors. You can walk around barefoot in the middle of winter when it's snowing outside and still feel, oh, so cozy. So I've moved into the hallway. There's not much you could do with this. All I did was take away the window, add in the mirrors so that it looks bigger, and was like, that's it, that's enough. I probably could have put something else in there decorative, but it's such a small space, I couldn't see the point. So the next bedroom, I've gone with a red colour scheme, and the reason for this is to avoid using blue everywhere. And once I started using the red, I was able to match things up, just make it a little bit more interesting. The room itself is obviously very weirdly shaped. And so this tiny little nook looked perfect to be like a little mini dressing room type thing, with the rest of the space being used for the bed, having a little chair leading out onto the balcony and the Juliet balcony out the back. Obviously need to have indoor plants because, again, it works with that idea of how plants bring life into a house and make it homely. So once we go from this, I decided to go downstairs. And you might have noticed I've tried to keep a lot of woods in the design. They add a lot of warmth and texture to a house without you having to add too much to it. So I really like that use of woods, especially darker woods. Like light woods are very good, but in a light house like this, a light woods would then just completely get whitewashed and you wouldn't notice it, whereas the darker stuff adds some interest. It gives you eye somewhere to focus, and it just makes you feel more comfy, cozy in the space. So I actually go down and do that in the kitchen. The kitchen is quite a classic looking room. I went for a very basic but maybe a bit more older-fashioned cabinet, and when I've done that, I've gone with the woods, I've gone with the white countertops, and I tried to make it quite simple but inviting. Inviting is probably the word I'd go for. You may have noticed momentarily I put in a small wall downstairs. That's because I realised I had no bathroom, and that is just a terrible idea for a house, because where are you going to go to the toilet? Now we've got this tiny space, so the elongated room I thought was a great space to have your kitchen in. You've got more than enough room to go around and do things, to do your cooking. And then I had originally planned to put a dining room in, but I thought the countertops with stools would actually look a lot better, and that in itself took up too much space for me to be able to eventually put a dining table in. So I thought, well, this works, that's going to be sufficient for me. I mean, if I'd actually planned any of this, I'm sure it would have come out a lot better, but there you go. Obviously you've got to have some cupboards, you need somewhere to store things, and I put the windows in so they could have a bit more light coming into the kitchen and also have a look out into that patio area in the pool, see what's going on, etc, etc. And then I went for the green bar stools just to add a little bit of colour. I do eventually change the countertops for the seating area, so the actual cabinet itself stays the same, but the countertops become a darker colour, so as to just give a bit of a contrast, because I just felt it looked beige. Like, the only word I can think of to describe it is just beige. Bathroom, very simple. I've put in some space for them to obviously have their towels, etc. You've got a shower bath, because whilst it's absolutely wonderful to have a bath, I don't want one all the time. Showers are much more convenient, they're simpler, they waste less water, and in a hot climate you have to be sensible about how much water you use. So a shower is a much more convenient thing, but that's not to say that sometimes it's not nice to have a bath and be able to relax and soak, especially when you've got, like, you've been doing exercise or you've been doing some heavy lifting and you've just got a bit of a pain and you need to soak all those muscles through. So that's why I went for that one. This is where I start realising the kitchen area is boring and it looks just beige. So here come my slightly changed countertops. It's still very beige, but it's a little bit better. A little bit better. Now, the living room, I wanted to have more of these greens in it. So we've still got the green/blues to go with, obviously, the whole feel. But it also goes with the chairs in the kitchen, and it has that little bit of continuity. And this rug, oh my god, I've never used this rug. I never knew how to use this rug, because when you put it down originally, the rug is quite crazy coloured, and I've had some Sims like that, but never enough that I ever wanted to actually use it. But I put it down out of a maybe I'll find something, because recently I've been looking through more of the swatches and noticed that things change more frequently, like the whole picture change instead of just a change of colour. And I thought, well, I know this rug does this, let's give it a chance. And it turns out I actually really like it. It goes with the room, it adds some texture in and some pattern, because there's not much in there at the moment, without being too bright and crazy. That picture I needed to have. I came across it when I was doing the first bedroom upstairs, and because of the white sort of square facade houses in it, even though it's quite a plush looking picture with all the greens, it just made me think of Greece, and I thought, well, that just seemed a little bit too perfect not to have it in the house. So it adds a bit more colour to it and it just looks good. Now, one of the things I have realised, I put the 3 pictures up there. I moved that blue one of the door, which is, again, very Greek, over to a wall by itself, because I thought having the 3 looked a bit odd, and I forgot to put a picture up there instead. So that wall is a little bit emptier than I anticipated. This room was going to be a bedroom. Was going to be, past tense. And then I thought it was a bit weird having a bedroom down on the ground floor when all the others were upstairs. And the fact that there wasn't much like eating space in the kitchen dining area. So it didn't work. So I thought, actually, the Sim who lives here is going to be quite outdoorsy, like spending their time out there. But sometimes, you know, you need a space to be able to sit and be quiet and relax and do some work and actually get focused. So a nice office space works really well. So this is where you can see my inability to do any outdoor design. I really want the stuff pack, which is all about like the outdoor furniture, because I don't think with any of the expansions, because I've only bought expansions and 1 game pack, and the game pack was vampires, because I was told it brought an awful lot into the game that you could use, like, in terms of gameplay. But I've never bought a stuff pack in my life, but I really want it, because there's just not enough for outdoors otherwise. It just looks a bit meh. Definitely meh. So the most I ever get is obviously these chairs. We get the small dining table outside, so everyone can sit out. You know, the garden is usable, but don't get me wrong, there's definitely room for improvement in terms of what it could look like. Yeah, so that's the majority of the house done. I did have to go back and change a few things. I forgot to do some of the lights, not gonna lie. And I did forget to put the stairs on the front of the house as well. I do eventually fix that, so that's okay. It all works out. But this is pretty much it. So this is the design of the house. I'm really happy with this, and I'm looking forward to doing more of these builds throughout Oasis Springs. I think it will look really nice, and sort of I want to try and explore what I can do in terms of house design, making them more expensive, making really cheap ones. I could sort of do these size, but anything bigger or smaller, that's where I struggle. But we'll see what happens. You can find this on the gallery, so please feel free to download. I will be back sometime soon. I've got several videos I need to upload. I just not got round to, but I will see you again sometime soon. Bye bye.